Live from Moscow, this is RT. I'm Rory Suchet. Thanks for joining us on the programme. If you haven't already heard, massive twin blasts have rocked the Syrian capital, ultimately targeting the army's command headquarters. Already the rebel group, the Free Syrian Army, claiming responsibility for this enormous bombing in the capital. Let's discuss it further now with Patrick Henningsen, geopolitical analyst for the Current Affairs website, UK column, joining us live from London. Patrick, a pleasure to see you today. Let's talk about the blame game here very quickly before we delve deeper in the matter. Two enormous blasts in Damascus targeting a government building. Who's responsible here? Why target such a major facility in the heart of the major city?
It's clear now that the hell that's been unleashed by the U.S. and their allies and the Gulf states has now reached new levels of violence in the heart of Syria, in the capital of Damascus. So this is the result of 18 months or 2 months or 2 years of progressive planning and trying to get arms into the country and having foreign fighters all over the different regions in Syria. And now the violence has come into Damascus. It's very, very sad to see the country descending into this sort of chaos, but that's to be expected.
But Patrick, as we know, I'm sorry to interrupt you, the rebels have already announced they are responsible for these attacks. Ultimately, in some ways, they are admitting to terrorism. How can they get away with admitting that so willingly and freely?
Well, they can do that, Roy, because they have the full backing of the United States, the Foreign Office in Britain, France, Israel, and all of the Gulf states, who seem to have some sort of international mandate in the quote-unquote international community. But what you've got here also is the propaganda war has now taken an ugly turn, and I believe that the recent shooting of the Press TV bureau correspondent was a targeted assassination because he's working for an Iranian state broadcaster. So the message is only a certain amount of media is allowed to perform in Syria and not others.
But doesn't it seem bizarre to you, Patrick? Doesn't it seem a little bit bizarre? I mean, here you're saying that the rebels can get away with what are essentially terrorist attacks in Damascus. They can get away with it because they have the support of the international community. As you know, Patrick, right now in New York, the UN General Assembly meeting all week. When it comes to the issue of Syria, we don't hear any condemnation of these terror attacks. All we hear are world leaders once again calling for Bashar al-Assad to step down, and yet it's the rebels who are causing the destruction and death.
Yeah, well, this flies in the face of the official policy of Washington and the other NATO countries and their war on terror for the last 10 years. And now they're actively supporting real terrorists who are indiscriminately targeting civilians, journalists, religious ethnic cleansing of Christians in central Syria. This is like Nicaragua, which the previous U.S. government and CIA had orchestrated a total destabilization in a country like Nicaragua. Only now you can have the element of foreign fighters. So Syria is like Nicaragua on steroids. This is most of these Free Syrian Army fighters are not from Syria, and that's something the public needs to understand.
Right, Patrick, as we've been saying, certainly with you and with other analysts and experts over recent weeks, there is a definite presence of foreign fighters involved in Syria. If I may, Patrick, I'm sorry I'm running low on time, but I have to ask you one last question here. At the UN meeting that we all know is ongoing in New York, Qatar has explicitly called for Arab nations to intervene in Syria, bypassing the United Nations. How likely is that other regional powers will follow suit?
Well, they've made such threats in the past, and so has Saudi Arabia. These sort of ideas have already come out of the Gulf states. But what it is, it's a complete runaround. You can see what's happening here, Roy. This is an interesting narrative. This looks like the League of Nations before World War II, the United Nations, who is completely, in this case, useless in any kind of international bilateral diplomacy, and they're going to be blamed if Syria falls and if a conflict of Iran ensues after that, a World War III situation. It's the perfect storm to put in a new global government in sort of 5 to 10 years' time. But as you can see, this total hypocrisy, and it's quite surreal. And, you know, just watching it and watching this sort of rhetoric coming out of Washington and London particularly, it's unbelievable.
All right, well, Patrick, the UN meeting has not finished by any stretch of the imagination. It continues all week. So Patrick Henningsen will certainly keep everyone posted on this. Geopolitical analyst for the Current Affairs website UK column. Thanks for joining us live from London today.
Thanks, Roy.